We enjoyed a great life on the ranch. But one thing that one must understand very clearly, that's a lesson that I learned very quickly, is ranching is a way of life. It's not a way to riches. It is, you're not going to get rich by ranching. It is a way of life, a very enjoyable way of life. Well, one day we went to Wombats, which is maybe an hour and a half's drive from the ranch. And as the name says, warm baths, it's hot springs. And it just so turned out that I contracted yellow jaundice in this damn hot springs. And of course, you turn yellow, literally, you turn yellow. And I, of course, I went into Pretoria. Tina took me into Pretoria, and my dad immediately saw that there was a serious problem here, and he came to the conclusion that my liver was so enlarged that he would not have an ambulance even come to take me to hospital in fear of the trip damaging my liver. And to him, it was a miracle how we got to Pretoria from the ranch. But anyhow, there I was. I was in bed for about 10 days in Pretoria, and Jen and my dad taking care of me. When it eventually came time for me to drive or go back to the ranch, oh, we had to drive so slowly, and because the pain was still excruciating. But we made it. Tia did not drive faster than walking speed when we eventually got on the dirt road. I was hardly over the spell of yellow jaundice when I woke up one morning with severe, what do you call it, stomach pain. And I knew something was wrong. Tia took me into Andre Case, our local general practitioner, very good friend of ours, practicing as a medical doctor in Fallwater. He examined me and told his secretary to cancel all his appointments for the day. Told Tia, get confused. Told Tia to get me in the car and drive to Nailstrom Hospital. He will meet us there. Or shall I rather say, we will meet him there. When we got to Nailstrom, Andre was waiting for me in the surgery, in the hospital. And I had a severe case of, what do you call it, appendicitis. And he was worried that it was going to be too late. This damn thing was going to rupture. Anyhow, Andre did the surgery, went well, and he kept me. He kept me there for that night in the hospital. Yeah, kept me there that night. Following day, he says, "Okay, you're okay. Get out of here. Go home." We went home. As we got home, now remember, I just had surgery yesterday morning, so dirt roads, owies, and whatever. When I got back home, one of the laborers was in my house trying to call somebody to get help, trying to get hold of Willie Ernst. Said, what was wrong? He says, no, I must come and look. So God, what now? So I went up. about 600-700 yards up the one road, there was a cattle guard, and I had 2 cows in the cattle guard with broken legs. They were stuck in the cattle guard with broken legs. Now, remember, I'm still here. I can't even walk upright, man. Now I have to go and take care of 2 cattle with broken legs, 2 cows with broken legs. Anyhow, I just decided, okay, there's only one thing I can do right now is I shot the cows just to put them out of their misery. Left them right there stuck in the cattle guard. Went back home, called Willie Ernst, explained the situation to him. Says, I've got 2 cows here stuck. I shot them both. They're stuck in the cattle guard. You gotta come and help me. I just had surgery yesterday. I can't butcher these cows now. It's impossible. Needless to say, Willie was. Oh, here's my here's my cut again. Needless to say, it was not even 40 minutes, and Willie was there. Willie took charge. He had those cows skinned, butchered. He cut them up, quartered them, and 6 o'clock that afternoon, he had those 2 cows all cut up in Ziploc bags in the freezers. And of course, I was very happy. I said to him, well, man, how can I make this good to you? He says, you owe me 12 beers and a bottle of brandy. I said, well, the beers I have, and there might be some brandy here, but the beers, well, let's just go and check there in my bar if there's some beers. Help yourself. So he went and looked. He says, yeah, there are 12 beers here. I said, well, put them in the fridge. We're going to drink them tonight. He says, you're going to drink these beers? You had surgery yesterday? I says, of course. I'm not going to pour the beer over my wound. I'm just going to drink it. Oh, Billy. Oh, you know. He made me give him those 12 beers. And he made me remind me very, very well that I owe him a bottle of brandy as well. Of course, all jokingly, you know, but yeah, so Willie made me give me that bloody. He made me give him 12 beers and a bottle of brandy. Now, I just mentioned Andre Case. One day, I remember, it was actually hilarious if you think back. I had to go to if my Jeep or my Land Cruiser or my motorbike started, little Louikie was in there screaming blue murder. He was going with me. I couldn't leave him. Of course, okay, now I was going to town, had to go and buy some stuff. And Louikie was in the car and waiting for me. So what was the modus operandi was I would take Louikie and drop him off at Andre and Nelia at her house. He's the doctor, but she was what do you call it? Home giver, home whatever. She didn't caregiver, home. She was a housewife, man. I don't know what's the other word that you call for it. You know, they've got a fancy word in America for it. Home caregiver or whatever, yeah. So I dropped the kid off at Nelia. I went to do my shopping, etc., etc., etc. Got all the stuff at the co-op that I needed, and went back home to the ranch. When I got back to the ranch, Tia wanted to know where's Louikie. Oh, God, I forgot him in town. I'm not going to go back now to go and pick him up. So she says, no problem, man. It's Wednesday today. She'll call Nelia and give him a toothbrush or whatever and clean underwear. We'll pick him up after church on Sunday. No problem. So we left him there till Sunday, and we picked him up when we went into church on Sunday, 3 days later. Those carefree days. I said those were the days when we still had time. We still had time. We made time when we had time. Now, it was not, well, it was during this time, that in the meantime, Talia was born. But I got to tell this one story about Talia before I forget about it. She was maybe 3 years old or something. And she had her own little table where she was sitting and eating. But the kid must have been so tired or whatever, because there where she was eating in the kitchen at her own little table and own little chair, she slumped forward with her head in a food bowl. And of course, spittle was on her food and whatever, and she was blowing bubbles. Yeah, my poor little girl, lying with her face first in the food, blowing bubbles. But anyhow, this was now Talia, maybe 2, 3 years old. And she had her own nanny. And Anna was her name. I don't even know if Anna had a Sesotho name. But Anna was our housekeeper, Christina Mogorosi. Anna was her daughter. But Anna was also pregnant at that stage. But we're going to Frida. Frida is Tia's sister, was getting married, and so we had to leave Talia and Anna at my parents' house. They were not there; they were somewhere else. So we would go to Frida's wedding and then check everything is okay back at the house, and then go to the reception. Anyhow, it was when we returned, or no, we didn't even get to go to the wedding yet. Then Anna herself went into labor pains. Now, here I am, I'm in Pretoria. My dad is not there. This is in the bloody apartheid days. How are you going to get a ambulance from a so-called black hospital to come and pick up a person here in a white neighborhood, or vice versa, or have a white ambulance pick up a black person to take to a black hospital, to use the terms that were the going terms in those days? Just couldn't do it. And now what? And then it struck me. Johnny was in his final year at medical school. I called Johnny. Johnny was there within 20 minutes, 15 minutes. He said, no problem. Let's sort this out. And Johnny was hardly there. And it was me and Johnny and Ida. And we brought this little baby into the world. And that's just right there and then. Ida's Sesotho name was Nthabiseng. Then I said to Anna, no, this baby is going to give us all joy. This baby's name must be Nthabiseng. Nthabiseng is making me happy. And I don't know where that little girl is today, but her name was Nthabiseng. And I gave her that name. Yeah, how some sweet times as well. And yep, Johnny saved the day. Oh yeah, yeah. Well, sorry, Joe. Yeah, you remember that because then after that we managed to go. We brought the baby into the world, and Anna was okay. And then we decided, okay, we're going to go to the reception. We went to the reception. We weren't there for too long because we needed to go and check because Anna was, by herself, etc., etc. Talia was now with us. But dang, we got back home. The baby was all wrapped up, and Anna had the baby in a Peppa position on her back, carrying the baby, covered in wrapped up in a blanket. All the linens were washed, the sheets were washed. The whole place was spick and span clean. After she had just given birth to a baby 2 hours ago. I don't know how she did it, but she did it. But we love that little Anna. What was so wonderful, Talia was so thrilled about the baby because she thought she had now her own live little doll to play with. She thought Anna's baby was not going to be her doll to play with. Yeah, shame. And Anna only spoke Sesotho with Talia. So Talia spoke Sesotho fluently, or Setswana, until somebody made a joke about it one day. Or made a joke or a comment about it, and Talia was embarrassed and she just never said a word of Sesotho again, or Setswana again. And
as a sidebar, tell me what native languages you speak.
for me, well, I speak Sesotho, I speak Setswana, I speak Sepedi. And then I speak a little bit of Chinanja and Chalapa. And of course, Afrikaans English, but shame. Now, the other thing about this Talia, she and her dad, not she and her dad, Jeanette and my dad were visiting us on the ranch one day. And we were walking along the river, and the kids were never allowed to go to the river by themselves. First of all, drowning, and secondly, because of crocodiles. But we had a bloody male dog's name was Vidok, one of these English wire-haired mongrels. And he would walk in front of us, and like dogs do, he would go and he would lift his leg and mark his territory, walk 10, 15 feet, mark his territory. And Talia saw what the dog was doing. So as the dog lifted his leg, Talia went to where the dog lifted his leg, and Talia would do the same thing, lift her leg. And Jeanette, of course, Talia didn't beat her doing that. It's just mimicking the dog. Jeanette laughed hysterically about Talia doing that and mimicking the dog where the dog was peeing and lifting his leg. But there was something else that I wanted to tell you about that. Mimicking the dog, okay. Myself, Helmut, Gert de Pre, we went hunting at a friend of ours there on the Matlabas River, maybe about 40 miles away from where I ranched. That was our yearly thing, we would have a hunt for just the dads, but we would also have a father and son hunt, which was just an excuse for another hunt. Now, Helmut did not have a son, so he had a daughter, Anneliese. But it doesn't matter, those kids, they didn't know the difference between a girl or a boy or whatever, or maybe if they did know, I mean, couldn't carry that scrap, you know. Yeah, so what? Okay, well, yeah, she wears different clothes. She must be a girl, you know, that kind of thing. And they were playing, and Louis had a Coke, a soda, opened. Is it still working? And somehow, of course, he forgot about it. And when he got back to it, in the meantime, a bee had gotten back into this soda. And when he took a swig, that bee stung him up in his palate. Yeah, and of course he was screaming blue murder. Now what? Okay, we have to make a plan. The only way to take a bee stinger out is to scratch it out with with a knife blade, so that you don't squeeze the sac and squeeze the poison into the victim, to put it that way. Anyhow, now we got to make a plan. And how are we going to do this? I said, okay, well, we're going to get a stick about 6 to 8 inches. Made Louis open his mouth. I put a stick in his mouth so that he could bite on the stick. He couldn't close his mouth. And then, luckily, we had that giant of a man, Helmut. He could hold that Louis and wrap around him in 6 different ways that Louis couldn't even fart. I mean, he was in such a grip, he couldn't do anything. Now, imagine the fear of this little kid when Helmut has him like this. There's a stick in his mouth, and here comes his father with the knife. Can you imagine the fear that was sort of flashed through that kid's mind? Oh my gosh, his father's going to kill him, or whatever the case may be. Then I figured out, okay, well, Gert is still there. Gert can blindfold Louis. And his mouth open. I got the stinger out. Everybody was happy. And life was good.
And you went on playing right
Right then, yeah, they went playing. They went playing. Yeah, goodness. I mentioned the name Willie Ernst and his wife Deirdre. Deirdre gave Talia 4 goslings. And they were Talia's pets. And she also gave her a Muscovy. Why the one Muscovy, I don't know. But Muscovy, the name for a Muscovy in Setswana is Lepidipidi. But it was too long, so the name, Talia just called the damn thing Pidi Pidi. It's easy enough, Pidi Pidi. And the name stuck. Everybody called the damn thing Pidi Pidi. He was a house pet. He would be in the house with us. And it was a nice pet. He didn't poop in the house, nothing. If a car stopped there, he would walk out and he would go and welcome the guests and walk with them and bring them towards the house. No problem. He did it with everybody, no exception, except Helmut Lesman. He did not like Helmut whatsoever. If he saw Helmut, he saw him, he attacked him and he bit him. Bit him and hit him with his, wings and whatever. And even if Helmut left, he would still chase him to the car and bite him while he was getting into the car. This bloody pity. Now, in the meantime, these little goslings grew up. And before you knew it, before we knew it, these little goslings were 4 big geese. They had their own little pen where they slept at night. And one night, and they bred and they had some babies themselves. It was actually 2 males and 2 females. Now, these 2 females had babies at the same time, goslings. And one night we heard a bloody commotion. Tia and I were already in bed, and the 2 bloody geese came out and they were making a racket on our front porch, flying up against the door and biting and pecking on the door and hicking on the door with their wings, and couldn't understand what the hell was going on. We just thought that bloody things are just unruly. Excuse me. Sad part of it is we ignored them. The following morning, when we woke up, those geese were still there by the front door. And then I realized there's a big problem. And I went to look in their coop. Big python, maybe 10 feet. Well, and they had eaten the other 2 females and all the babies. There was nothing left, just the bloody python there with his swollen belly because he ate the 2 geese and all the little goslings. Now, can you imagine how bad we felt for not having gotten up during the night? These geese came to ask for help, and we ignored them. Oof, to this day, it's still a very difficult thing for me to digest. To think that those geese came to ask for help, and we ignored them. We thought they were just bloody unruly. That's it. I think that's it for now, my scuttleball. Now, have you still got? How much have you still got there?